I have extremely special guest with me today, Miss Brigid Mazzagatti, two-time cancer survivor. What led you to figuring out that you had cancer?
I had some very scary dreams that were lifelike dreams that woke me up. I knew something was wrong. Just it was a message, really. And years later, I read an article that some of the doctors asked, have you had any weird dreams? Because your body will tell you, if you're aware of it, that something's going on.
Your experience is crazy. The initial time, I think you said you had like 5 doctors.
So I ended up going to 5 different doctors. All of them said, couldn't find anything. I said, I don't feel well. And some doctors, I hate to say it, this godlike complex, but they're not infallible. You know, I think if you listen to your own body, it's gonna tell you more than anything.
During cancer, did have one very dark, like one of the darkest dreams I've ever had in my life. It was almost like a Grim Reaper figure over my bed. I've never experienced a dream like that. I've never felt like that or any kind of like presence like that in a dream before.
My first time I had cancer was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and that was in 1998. That lasted till 2004. I had 2 reoccurrences. I have children. I have 3 wonderful kids. They're the whole reason I'm alive and my whole passion in life. And I think when you have a family, not only fighting for you, but you're fighting for them. My biggest advice would be don't quit. Get up every morning, have a purpose, and don't quit no matter what. Comes back into the room, he puts his hand right on my neck, and he says, how long's that been there? I said, what are you talking about? He goes, are you spitting up green junk? I said, yes. He says he immediately got a hold of an endocrinologist that day. My doctor who gave me radiation twice wasn't supposed to. It was only supposed to be 1-time dose. So Dr. Sarla said, nobody looked at your slides. You're radiation resistant. And because of that,
thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Beast vs. Zombie. I have extremely special guests with me today, Miss Brigid Mazzagatti, 2-time cancer survivor. Thank you so much today for joining us on this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So to start, the first question I want to ask you, because you are no stranger to overcoming challenges in your life, what kind of advice would you give to anybody going through any kind of challenge, big or small, in their life?
My biggest advice would be don't quit. Get up every morning, have a purpose, and don't quit no matter what.
Yeah, that's the key to just about everything in life, right? Any kind of goals you have, any kind of, things that you desire, anything that you want in life, right? We're all humans. Mm-hmm. We all have the power to achieve great things unless you quit. Right. That's why I tell people that all the time, right? Whatever you do, just don't quit, because we all have a plan to achieve something and nothing ever goes according to plan.
Correct.
Right? You get what I'm saying? And so if you just simply like give up when something, well, I always say it's not good or bad, but it's like unexpected, right? Mm-hmm. You couldn't plan for this because you do not see the future, right? So something comes up that was not planned or expected. That's not a time to quit, right? You just have to simply like overcome whatever that looks like.
Yeah, life has a way of throwing you a curveball.
Right.
And you have to overcome these challenges and have, to me at least, a very strong belief in God and knowing that you can overcome anything with Him.
Yes, 100%. I believe that. I think going through a cancer journey like we have definitely also kind of like solidifies that and confirms that. Or like in my case, it gave me kind of more opportunity to kind of like reconnect there. That's kind of what happened for me. And so, yeah, I agree 100%. So you beat cancer twice.
Yes.
Kind of explain what that was to us as far as when that happened and what kind of cancer you had.
My first time I had cancer was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and that was in 1998. And then my second time, that lasted till 2004. I had 2 reoccurrences with that. And then finally in 2004, August 11th was my last surgery, and I've been cancer-free ever since. Awesome. On that one. And then my second cancer was lung cancer, and that was 4.5 years ago. and I had my surgery on March 17th, luck of the Irish, and I'm only have another 3 months to get my 5 years in.
That's awesome.
So I'm so ecstatic. No more scans, blood tests, all that fun stuff. Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited for you because I know that how hard it is to get through things like that. So what kind of symptoms or side effects or like what led you to figuring out that you had cancer?
The first time with thyroid cancer, I just wasn't feeling well. And I had some very scary dreams that were lifelike dreams that woke me up. And I knew something was wrong. Just it was a message, really. And one of the dreams, just real quickly, was that I had my father right by my side, and I used to coach soccer and had all these kids around the net. And my father said you had to beat what was in the net, and the net was a black beast. And I had to get the ball and hit that. And I'm like, what was that all about? So I'm like, okay, I don't feel well. That's a really weird dream. And then my second dream I had before I found out was I was with my boys, a really strange dream. My husband was upstream. We went over Niagara Falls. I had my boys, and we went into this huge abyss underneath the water. And there was a gentleman underneath the water with a hooded type hood on him and a black cape and the whole thing. And he does this, and I'm like, I go to my kids to do this, like, come with me. And he goes, not you. And he points at my tombstone. And I just said, okay, something is wrong. Years later, I read an article that some of the doctors asked, have you had any weird dreams? Because your body will tell you, if you're aware of it, that something's going on. So I ended up going to 5 different doctors. All of them said, couldn't find anything. I said, I don't feel well. I just quit smoking. Don't smoke.
Yeah.
That's a bad one. And I didn't feel well. So I went to a doctor, and it was the last time, and I got a lung x-ray, and they said, everything's fine. Nobody touched my neck, though, and felt around the neck area. And I finally went to a doctor, and he said, well, let's put you on Wellbutrin. That's an antidepressant, and that's for not quitting smoking. And I said, great. I said, we'll do that. So he left. He goes, you're going to feel great after this. He comes back into the room. And he puts his hand right on my neck, and he says, how long has that been there? I said, what? What are you talking about? And he goes, are you spitting up green junk? I said, yes. He says he immediately got a hold of an endocrinologist that day.
What's an endocrinologist?
ENT doctor for ears, nose, and throat.
Okay.
And I immediately went over there, and he said, oh, it's okay. It's just a brachial cleft cyst. And I thought, no, I've had 2 really scary dreams. I don't think so. So he goes, okay, well, do you want to go for the surgery? I said, absolutely, yes. So when I woke up from that surgery, I knew that it was in the doctor's face. And so he took the tumor out, and he says, okay, it's also in the thyroid. So I had to go for a second surgery because they didn't know for the thyroid.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was quite intense time for me. And then I got radiation. They put you in this room, and you get the radiation, and you stay in there for 3 days, and that's pretty intense. And then everything was good. And so come 2001, it came back. I get the phone call from the doctor. I was planning on having another kid with my husband, a daughter, and that never happened because I got radiation. I had to get radiation for the second time. So that was really a huge coming through some depression through that. And then in 2004, it came back from my esophagus and my vocal cords. And my doctor who gave me radiation twice wasn't supposed to. It was only supposed to be a one-time dose. He closed his practice. I had no doctor. It was scary. And I had to find a new doctor for my thyroid. And, that was an endocrinologist. And so he said to me, and they kept on wanting to sent me to UCLA and all these places to see if they could come up with different things to cure me. And my doctor said, I don't want to step on anybody's feet, but let's take you to MD Anderson. I have Dr. Sarlis there, and he's a world-renowned endocrinologist. So I go there, and the surgeon said, well, I've only lost one set of vocal cords. I said, well, if I can't tell my kids I love them anymore, then you're not doing the surgery. So Dr. Sarla said, nobody looked at your slides. You're radiation resistant. And because of that, that's why I had the reoccurrences twice. So, I'm praise God. I'm doing great since 2004, so it hasn't come back.
And so, man, it's very interesting that you got some very dark dreams. During cancer, did have one very dark, like one of the darkest dreams I've ever had in my life. And it was very real. Like you said, I was back home, so I'm from Portland, Oregon. I was home. I was it was just at night, I was by myself that night, and I had a dream it was almost like a Grim Reaper figure over my bed. And it was very intense and, kind of made me feel very, I don't know, like fearful a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I remember being able to kind of like lean into it and not be afraid of it. And that kind of made me feel good about it. But I've never experienced a dream like that. I've never felt like that or any kind of like presence like that in a dream before. So it's interesting that you brought that up. I've never heard anybody speak about any kind of dreams like that before as like a sign or anything. And I don't think I've ever even told anybody this story before, but it 100% relates, and 100% was kind of like a sign. I don't remember exactly where I was in my treatments at that time, but I've experienced something like that. So that's pretty interesting. I can't explain it, I can't explain it other than it was some kind of sign and some kind of, right? Like people always say that like dreams do mean something. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, from what I understand, a lot of things about dreams are kind of what are subconsciously in you as far as like what you're seeing and things like that. And, I'm sure there's a lot that we don't understand about our dreams, So can you explain a little bit, like what actually is thyroid cancer? Like what actually is that?
Thyroid cancer is a little tiny part that we have in our throat, and it regulates everything in your body from your hair being dry, not dry, your nails, depression, anxiety. It controls getting pregnant or not getting pregnant. I mean, this little part controls almost the regulation of your heat in your body, everything. So it's very comprehensive. So without it, it causes depression, anxiety, a lot of things when you don't have it, and other problems. Fatigue, always being tired. With me, they put me on a very high dose of Synthroid, which they give you when you don't have a thyroid. Okay. And they put me, it was like being on speed, and I never slept. And it was terrible because they didn't want the cells to grow back. So they figured if they ran me high, they wouldn't come back. Well, they kept on coming back anyway. So for about 4 years of my life, I didn't sleep. It was just constant not being able to sleep. And then finally on my fifth year, I think I said, I've had it. I'm going to lower my dose. And I ended up in the hospital with something due to that cause of that effect. And so they finally lowered it where I could start sleeping and have a little bit of normalcy in my life again. But it causes a lot of different problems, just not the cancer alone.
Mm-hmm. Man, I couldn't imagine not being able to sleep. The only thing I can relate to that is when I was getting my bone marrow transplants, you get your blood drawn every 4 hours. Mm. And so that's the closest thing I got to like not sleeping. And that's kind of where BeastvsZombie comes from, is I felt like a zombie when I was going through specifically like my transplants. I'm hooked up to like 7 IVs, right? So there's always like kind of some type of medication or drug pumping through me. So I'm always kind of, I guess, like on edge a little bit, right? And that is it's crazy. It's just not healthy. It's just tough. It's exhausting and draining, and you're already dealing with your health issues and all of that. And then on top of that, we can't sleep. So that's crazy. So then fast forward, you've beat thyroid cancer. Now you've gotten lung cancer. What does that look like?
It was probably one of the most painful surgeries I ever went through in my whole life. But I was blessed. Like I said, it was St. Patty's Day, and I'm Irish, even though I have an Italian last name. I'm married to an Italian man. But how that happened, how I found that out, is my sister was dying from lung cancer. My father died from lung cancer, and my aunt died from lung cancer. And so I hid my not feeling well from my mom because she was already losing one daughter from cancer. So I didn't want her to know I was having medical issues again. So I kept it real quiet, and I just knew I wasn't feeling well again, and I had stuff again coming out of, just like the thyroid, the green stuff coming up. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to get this checked. And so I went and got a scan, and they noticed a little something. So they ended up doing the scan, going down there and checking it out. They couldn't find anything. They did 8 biopsies. They couldn't find anything. And so I went to a doctor who did the microbiology robotics. And he says, let's check it out one more time. He graduated from one of those high colleges, and so we did it again. And my pulmonologist went down there and got some samples, and they found the cancer this time. So again, I'm blessed again. And the thing about this whole thing is that, again, you can't just quit. You're still not feeling well. Things are happening. Your doctors are telling you it's okay. You still have to go, you know what? I'm not feeling well. There's something else. And that's the biggest advice I could give anybody. You have to be very proactive in your health if you want to stay alive, especially with cancer or any disease. You really have to be proactive. But I had the surgery. He went in with robotics. It's pretty interesting surgery. He goes in and has 3 hands, so I had 3 little incisions made, and they go in like a little cigar, and they just suck it out. But it was probably one of the most painful things I've ever gone through in my whole life, as far as recovery. And I would say to anybody, don't smoke. That was my takeaway from all this. So
yeah. And so you also kind of have a family history of some cancer as well. Mm-hmm. How do you think any of that contributes, or because I know obviously you were a previous smoker, so that may have contributed to what had gone on, and that's maybe what doctors would tell you. Also sounds like have somewhat of a history in your family of cancer. Is that kind of all they tell you about, like, why you got cancer, or did you ever ask, why, or what was going on?
Mine was like a papillary cancer, which would be the small cell cancer, which is related as a neck smoker. So, but with my father, he had mesothelioma. He worked at the test site, and he used to pack the drill bits with asbestos. So he never smoked. And so he died from asbestos cancer. And then my sister smoked years and years ago, but her cancer was not from smoking. It was just environmental. And so my aunt had smoked years and years ago. And I don't know what took her out, but when they diagnosed her, she was gone in 3 months. She went quick. So with me, I ended up only being in stage 1A. I did have to go on medication for 3 years to kill any cancer cells. It wasn't fun, but I'm like, if that's the worst thing I have to do, I didn't have to do radiation. I didn't have to do chemo. I just had to do medication. So I'm very, again, blessed because I wasn't stage 2, 3, or 4. I was stage 1. Yeah. So again, I have children. I have 3 wonderful kids, and they're the whole reason I'm alive and my whole passion in life. And I think when you have a family, you're not only fighting for you, but you're fighting for them.
100%. And on top of that, right, when you were going through any kind of challenges, like a cancer battle, those people that care about you, that you're fighting for, they're fighting with you as well.
Yes.
And so it's extremely important to be able to have some type of why, some type of reason to not quit, and because it's very interesting. Like your experience is crazy. You've had the initial time, I think you said you had like 5 doctors. You had, after when you found lung cancer, you went through 5, or it was like 8 different types of doctors or tests to get to a final diagnosis. So that's very interesting because, and I always tell people, get a second opinion. Get a second opinion, advocate for yourself.
Yes.
Because nobody knows how you're feeling except for you, right? And doctors, as you've experienced, will brush you off or say nothing is wrong with you. And like you said, as long as you fight for yourself, don't give up, then you'll get to where you're at here.
Right. And some doctors, I hate to say it, we have a doctor in the family have this godlike complex, but they're not infallible. I think if you listen to your own body, it's gonna tell you more than anything. And I think that just having that awareness on that is your biggest thing to go by. And if you're not feeling well, you're not feeling well. Just keep followed up with a different doctor. Get a second opinion, third opinion if you need to. But the whole thing is you have to fight for your own life.
Yes, because they're doctors. I'm not knocking any doctors here, right? They go to school. They do take a bunch of time to be able to be in the place that they're at, right? To be able to be a professional and an expert, as far as that looks like. They are still human beings.
Right.
And no human being is perfect. We all make mistakes. And as far as health goes, like, you can only see as far as the tests and the instruments that we're using, right? So like you said, you had, when you were getting treated or trying to get diagnosed for lung cancer, you had multiple doctors treat you and, run tests and found nothing. And like you said, you were kind of just lucky or blessed, or however we would put that you found a doctor that had some kind of different instruments and kind of a different level of expertise to be able to see what was actually going on. And you're not the only person that's gone through situations like this, and it's very hard to understand. Right before you get cancer, you've never gotten cancer before, and it's this whole can of worms that you open up, and you have to now all of a sudden, like you said, kind of fight for your life and fight to survive and do whatever it takes to figure out what, like you said, is going on with your body that only you feel, right? And only you really understand. And that's for a reason, right? You feel a way for a certain reason. So I'm glad you kept fighting. You never gave up. That's awesome. That says a lot about your character is who you are as a person as well, right? Because in my mind, the quote, how you do one thing is how you do all things. So I assume a lot of the way you approached your health is how you do a lot of other things in your life as well. And so that's extremely respectable, and I'm sure has done well for you in your life,
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
It has.
So, okay, how did you feel at any of these stages? You're finally diagnosed with cancer, right? How did that make you feel? What is going through your mind as far as man, I'm diagnosed with cancer. What's going to happen?
Nobody likes getting diagnosed, and they call it the big C, and I don't know why they do that, but they do. And you're scared. Your first reaction is, I'm scared. And I called my mom I'm like, Mom, I'm going. I think there's something wrong. You know, call your mom first, always, before you call your husband. Then my second call's my husband. And you tell them what's up, and they get scared. So the whole family's scared. And then you got to tell the kids, and they're scared. And you know, like you said, it's a family affair. It truly is. But I forgot where we're going with this a little bit.
No, yeah, just how were you feeling
Okay.
when you got cancer?
Scared, but because of my faith in God, I knew I was going to be okay. Strangely, but I knew I was going to be okay. The second time it came back, I was okay. I was upset because I couldn't have a child again, but I still knew I was okay. The third time it came back, I was angry, just angry.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just like, I can't believe this is the third time. But again, I lucked out with that one too, because when I was coming back from UCLA and they didn't really have any answers for me, there was a magazine for MD Anderson, which is in Houston, Texas, which is supposedly the best cancer facility in the world in the United States, and people come from all over. And I went to my doctor, my endocrinologist, and he says, you know what? I know you went to UCLA, and I know you're a surgeon. Your other doctors are saying go here. He says, but I have a doctor I went to school with who's top of the top. And he said, it's MD Anderson. I said, you got to be kidding me. And that was the magazine that was in the plane of MD Anderson again. So I don't know if I'm just lucky. I got a God over me, or my dad's up there, you know, because he died a long time ago, over 25 years ago. So, you know, I don't think it's all luck. You know, I think there is truly a God out there that's been looking after me.
Yes, 100%. And to be able to believe that does something in your life, right? And it gives you results and outcomes that some people could say is like a miracle. And right, because it's not a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. It's not a coincidence that you were in a place, you saw this magazine, your doctor refers you to the mag. You get what I'm saying? But also, like, how is it aligned so perfectly in this? There's no other explanation other than like your faith and your belief, you know? And that's something that, like I said, my cancer journey helped me kind of reconnect with. But that's something across the board that all of the other guests I've ever had a conversation with on this podcast have, is some type of faith and belief that it was going to be okay, right? And being able to hold on to that, just like any other goal in your life, is extremely important in this whole process of overcoming the challenge that we had. And it is, you know, it's hard to believe in things that you can't see, right? It's hard to believe in things you can't see. And if you can, you know, through your faith, through other reasons, whatever that looks like, believe in the things that you can't see, that everything is going to be okay. I always say that life is happening for you, right? So like, believe like, how is this happening for me, you know, and be able to take that and just simply feel good about that, or at least feel better than you're feeling now about moving forward, about what is going on, where life is taking me. Because like you said, life throws you curveballs, and it's on us to really interpret that and see, again, like, how is this happening for me in my life? What is going on here? How am, you know, I going to overcome this challenge, or how am I going to get through this, right? Because one of my favorite quotes is, the way to success is through failure, right? And you can't simply just avoid it or go around it. In our case, we had cancer. You can't just push it off to the side or avoid it or anything. It's something that that is like, a lot is out of our control, and we have no choice but to address it, right? And that's how I view all challenges in life. I say, another quote is, I say, like, to the cure to fear is action, right? And so being able to address those things like you were doing, be able to get multiple opinions and continue to follow up and advocate for yourself, do research, and not give up on the feeling that you're having is extremely important. And that those actions, obviously, like I said, have gotten you where you're at today.
Yeah, and the thing is, before I got the thyroid cancer, I was top of the world. Before I got the curveball, I was top salesperson for my company and awards. And 1995, I got the #1 sales award in Las Vegas, and bought 3 homes by the time I was 30, and a piece of land in Oregon over the beach. And you do all these things, and all of a sudden it's like it doesn't matter anymore. All those material things don't matter anymore if you don't have your health.
Yes.
And things change immediately for you, and your perspective changes immediately on life. And it's no longer that. I mean, my greatest accomplishment truly are my children. They're great. They're all grown up now, but they're truly my greatest accomplishment and my biggest reason I'm alive, along with my husband, of course. We've been together for 41 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's been a long. I met him at 19, so it's been a journey, and I've had support from him and my kids and my family through this journey, and so it's been a journey. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I'm hopefully my destination is heaven. I'm hoping, but we'll see.
Yeah. Man, so okay. Top salesman in Las Vegas. That's an accomplishment in itself. So being in sales, there is some type of, you deal with a lot of failure. You deal with a lot of objections, right? So what are kind of the things being an experienced salesman that you would say as far as kind of getting through life, overcoming challenges? What are some of the toughest challenges that you've overcome, like career-wise?
Career-wise, when I started, I was my husband were one of those couples that we got married, divorced, and remarried, and redid our vows. So we're one of those couples. And my challenge was we got a divorce, and then I ended up getting pregnant with my second kid from my husband after the divorce. So my challenge is that I was pregnant with my very first new home sales job, and I was hiding the pregnancy because I was scared I'd get fired or not keep the job. So that was my biggest challenge, is with David, which is my second son. So I hid that pregnancy, and my husband and I ended up getting back together at the end of all this, but I covered it for like the first 6-7 months, and I hadn't told my father. I'm like, oh God, he didn't like my husband anyway. So I'm like, now I got to tell him I'm pregnant. And I told him, I said, everybody thinks I should, terminate this pregnancy. And my father just grabbed me, and he says, I love you. I'm proud of you. He says, thank you for keeping this child. And so, and I get a little teary-eyed, but I said, I'm going to name him David after you.
Yeah.
So my biggest hero was my father. Mm-hmm. And, an inspiration was my father. And I'm blessed that I had a really good father that unconditionally loved me and was there for me during that time in my life. Yeah. And my mother too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Can't leave out the other parents. Can't leave out the other parent. So what kind of things, what would be like, so your father, biggest inspiration, great father, love to hear that. I could say a lot of things about both of my parents. Definitely some of my biggest supporters in my life, biggest motivators, inspirations, biggest teachers in my life. What is some of the best advice your father has ever given you?
Never borrow money that you're not going to pay back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you don't pay me back, you don't get a loan again.
Yeah.
So through that, I always learned to pay my bills on time period, don't borrow money that I can't pay back. So that was, and I think with my mom, she never quit. So I think I got a lot of my don't quit from her. She overcame so much in her life. And so she was a big inspiration for me.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love like mentorship, or, not everybody has good relationships with their parents or has support from their family, and it's played a big part in my life, from my grandparents on down to not just my parents, but mentors, coaches. I've always played sports. So, and then like in my professional career, right, CEOs and managers I've worked with as well. But mentorship is, a really kind of like a lost art. And especially when I see kind of the world now, right, because it helps you learn and overcome challenges and kind of fast tracks your process so you don't have to make the same mistakes, right? And in my opinion is one of the best ways to learn how to, live a successful life in whatever capacity that looks like for you, right? Not everybody's life trajectory is the same. Everybody has their own experience, right? And so I'm so happy that you had, parents and support from your family and people to look up to, because like I said, not everybody has that. And it can be, it's hard to just go through everything by yourself, especially some type of cancer diagnosis, especially like you said, a pregnancy, things like that. And you went through for however many months by yourself.
Yeah, I did.
So I know it's tough.
And I ended up being on top of it anyway. So, and my second kid, David, was actually my inspiration of being successful. And my quote was, "The best revenge is success."
I love that quote. Yes.
Because I don't know, that just motivated me, And like I said, David has been a huge inspiration in my life when I had him, because one kid is fun. When I had Troy, and he's a great kid. He's my oldest. He's on the fire department studying to be captain engineer right now, so he's doing it. But when I had Troy, I actually was in the music industry. And so we'd go back and forth down to L.A., and I had my little sports car, and it'd just be the two-seater. When I got pregnant with David, I'm like, oh, God, I got to give up the music industry because this is just not going to work. So that was another thing in my life. I had a singer, and her name was Julie James, and we produced a song called "Wedding of the World," and then I got a label of Mercury 2000 in L.A., and so I have no regrets. Having David was a good thing.
Yes.
A really good thing.
Yeah. And it's very interesting how one decision can make such a shift in your life. And, your life is kind of comes in seasons, right? And it's always interesting because you don't know the future, like I said earlier. And so you never really, like I said, nothing ever goes according to plan. So you never really understand, where life is going to take you exactly, right? And I always get excited to see, like I said, like how life is happening for me, where this is going to take me. I'm excited. It's interesting what is going to happen next, and that's something that kind of keeps me motivated. It's so interesting. You were in the music industry, so you had a artist, or you were a producer?
I produced her, yes.
You produced her?
Yeah.
So you're a music producer as well.
Well,
you have many talents, Miss Brigid.
Just for a year in my life.
Okay. Yeah. That's so cool, though. Because everybody loves music in some sort of fashion, because, it gives you a feeling, right? Mm-hmm. And it gives you I have a tattoo on my body. It's a boombox, and out of it comes like a cleaver and a heart, and it means like music relates to everything good and bad, right? So there's a song for every kind of point in your life, every emotion that you're going through. There's songs that remind you of certain time periods in your life, things like that. And yeah, I love music. It just makes you feel good.
Yeah, I picked up piano right after I got diagnosed with lung cancer. Just something to keep my focus. Getting older, I'm 61 now. I'm just like, okay, I need to start working on my brain here a little bit. So I did that, but I always played drums. So I was a drummer all the way back from high school on up. So I have a drum set, keyboards. I have a grand piano in my house, and so I have 2 grandchildren now, and I love. They're both on my drums, and then I set them up on my lap, and they play the piano like I was doing Adele by Running in the Deep, and my grandbaby was there just loving it, pounding on the keys at the same time, and got JoJo in the back drumming on the drums, and I just love it. I mean, because I can inspire these 2 little ones to love music.
Yes.
And it's just, I think it's great for them.
100%.
Yeah.
You sound like a great grandma. I wish. You also play the piano. That's another skill that we have here, and the drums. So you have many talents, Miss Brigid. I'm so excited and happy to have you here today. This is so fun to get to know you. So, right, you beat cancer now. You're almost 5 years healthy. How does that make you feel? How does it feel to kind of come out on the other end of all of this and be where you are at today?
It makes me feel passionate that I'm alive. Grateful. Waking up every morning, grateful. Just more purpose, more of a purpose-driven life, I think. And just knowing that I'm going to be here for my grandchildren and my kids is a blessing. Is a real blessing.
And it sounds like you had some great examples. So I'm sure you're a great mother, grandmother, all that, I could imagine. And that's awesome that, because like you said, cancer it definitely gives you a different perspective, regardless on life, right? And 100% gave me a lot more purpose, or just made me think, I guess, more purposeful, right? And kind of be more grateful for a lot of little things in my life, and move with more intention.
Yes.
Move with more intention, understanding how valuable just my health is. Because I got cancer when I was 19. So I'm 19 years old. I'm very healthy. I've been an athlete all my life. I never get sick or have any health issues. Maybe I hurt myself playing a sport or something, but I don't get sick very often. I don't have very many missed days of school or anything like that. And so, when you get cancer, you never think you're going to get cancer till you get it. And it's not something that you prepare for your whole life, or obviously don't look forward to or anything like that. And so it's just something that's like out of your control and that you just simply have to deal with. And your perspective 100% changes. And being able, I think it's it sounds kind of crazy. I say this to people all the time, it's one of the best things that happened to me is that maybe not that I got cancer, but that I overcame cancer, that I went through this journey in life and am able to come out on the other side and look at life the way I do. And in a lot of ways, I believe that it happened for a reason, and those reasons have gotten me to where I'm at today. So I really appreciate. I know that sounds crazy that I was diagnosed with cancer and have gone through all of this journey, but it has helped me become the person I am today. And like you said, I move with a lot more purpose. I have a lot more gratitude in my life. I'm more connected with my faith. And all of that, a lot of that, all of those benefits are mental, right? None of those are like, oh, I'm stronger now. I 100% like I'm back in the gym and strong, but all of those are mental benefits that have came from this journey. And I've always been taught since I was a little kid to be mentally tough. I always played sports, and it was always taught to me by my coaches and my mentors that, 80% of playing and being good at sports is not just the skills, the practice, the physical, things like that, but the mental part, the mental toughness, right? Your IQ for the sport, things like that. And it's the same in life. It's the same in life 100%. A lot of what we've gone through in this whole cancer journey has been a mental battle. And it really, has changed my mental to what I would say is like another level. Like, there's not a lot of stuff that really like gets to me. Like, I've beaten cancer, And so any kind of challenge in my life that comes to me is, I'm not trying to downplay it, but it's very minuscule to like a life-threatening challenge, right? And so it kind of has prepared me to overcome other obstacles in my life moving forward for the rest of my life, which I, again, am extremely grateful for and appreciate. And yeah, I'm super excited that you and I have both been able to come out of this journey on the other side. It's really cool.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of gratitude.
Yes.
And I have a gratitude list I like to write on.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. So, because I think sometimes we forget, even though I've been through this, I still need to do my gratitude list and what I'm grateful for. And I'm blessed. I'm truly, truly blessed. I have good friends like Janelle, and I have a great support group, and I go to church, and I do a lot of volunteer work, and I'm a much happier person because of it. And, I think the biggest thing with me is I have a lot of victory in my life, just not with cancer, but a lot of other things I have victory. And that makes me feel good, having victory in so many things that I could have died over many of things, just not but I have other things I could have died of. And so I have a lot of victory, and that excites me because I know where I was. When I had cancer, I was sort of like in the pit, and God just like grabbed me out of that pit, and says, "You're going to live," you pulled me out of that grave. So that's exciting because I know how much I'm loved, and not only from my family, but from God. And that's, I think when you really get that, you're grateful.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And it all kind of goes in hand. Like, there is kind of somewhat of a correlation in victory in general, right? And so that's exciting to hear. I've always been pretty good at things since I was a little kid. My dad, and it's kind of like a belief. My dad always instilled in me that like I could be good at anything. Whatever I wanted to do, I could do it. I was smart. I was able to do that, right? And again, like we spoke about earlier, not everybody has support or has a foundation of love and family, and is raised like that, right? And so then you have a different foundation and different kind of challenges to overcome than like you and I have, right? And just being able to, like you said, we're blessed to be able to have that, and super grateful to have a lot of victory because it, like you said, it makes you happy. It makes you happy. And anybody wants to do really at the end of the day, just like we crave food and our favorite sweets and things like that, we crave being loved and appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And that human connection is right? We're all on this world together. We all share this world. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Mm-hmm. And we are social people, and we are meant to be social, and that's a huge part of being able to feel happy in life in general.
Yes, and knowing that God made us to be in relationship with one another. He truly did. And to isolate is not a fun life. When I was going through the thyroid cancer and I got the depression with not having a thyroid and then the anxiety and all that, it was not a fun period of my life. And to have victory over depression now and victory over so many things that I'm grateful for, because you have the side effects of maybe having a part taken out of you or the cancer, the chemo. You do have effects of that. And to not only just overcome the cancer, but you're coming over, so many other things too on your body. Like when I went through the lung cancer, I had the pills that they gave me for 3 years was causing havoc with my body. And I was so grateful to take my last pill. But again, I didn't have radiation or chemo, so I'm like, it's a pill for 3 years, big deal. So, I think, life is either half empty or half full. A lot of people have heard that expression, that glass is half empty or half full. And I try to look at it that it's half full and not half empty.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so explain a little bit more in detail. When you got lung cancer, you didn't have to get chemo, radiation, traditional kind of treatments, but you did have to take some sort of medication and pills for 3 years. Mm-hmm. What was that? What was that doing to your body? What does that look like?
Well, it's sort of embarrassing. It gave me diarrhea for 3 years. It was not fun. So that was the biggest part of it, and controlling that. And so I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Right.
I'm all back together again. So
what was the purpose of the medication? Like, what, not the side effects, but how was it curing what you had going on?
It cured, what it was an experimental drug that came out that kills cancer cells. Because what I was told from my lung doctor, he said it just takes 1 cell, and then the cancer spreads. And so it was my choice to take the experimental pill or not. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I don't want a cancer cell back. So, now his advice to me, and I'll share this, is now that I'm past my 5 years almost, he said, if you get any headaches or any really sore muscles, I want to see you right away. Because a lot of, like my sister started her cancer in her hip and then went to her lungs and then to her brain. So if you get the headaches, check in with the doctor right away. You get some really sore, painful muscles, check in with the doctor right away, because it can be a sign that it's back. So I'm just sort of sharing that with somebody who might have gone through lung cancer or somebody who's just starting to go through that, to keep aware of those signs also.
Yeah, that's interesting. I get really bad headaches sometimes. I do. And I've talked to my oncologist about it, and they're just migraines, is what they say. And it's not very much like, there's no kind of like rhyme or reason to it. It's not like super frequent, but it's really bad migraines. I used to get them when I was a little kid as well. And I had kind of grown out of it. And then I had got cancer this most previous time and kind of started getting them again, and I still deal with it a little bit today. And like I said, I'm 4 going on 5 years healthy now. So
that's great.
As far as I know, according to all my scans and all the tests, thus now I'm healthy. But I do deal with I think we all deal with stuff after going through cancer, right? Like your body's never the same in some sort of fashion. And so how has it been for you, kind of, now that you've overcome cancer twice? What has it been like, kind of adjusting? Like, I know, like you said earlier, you were looking for like a sense of normalcy, right? When you're going through cancer, you're trying to feel as normal as possible, because even though you're sick, right, like you're still a person, you're still you, right? And people hear cancer and it's this, like you said, the big C word. And for us, it's just what we're going through in our life. It's our regular life, right? As whatever you would consider regular, right? And so how has it been for you? I know I hear a lot of people, they say, post-cancer is the hardest part and can be a struggle for people to kind of figure out, like, things like you volunteer, you kind of give back. People are always trying to figure out, like, how do you give back? Or they feel bad for people that were not able to overcome cancer. And why did I overcome cancer? Things like that. How do you deal with any post-cancer feelings or emotions or thoughts?
I think after the thyroid cancer, I dealt with a lot of depression, and I had to start getting into exercise and do that. And then, of course, my doctor put me on antidepressants because I had to deal with that on that aspect. So that was really hard. With the lung cancer, it's hard for me because I used to run a little bit and did a couple of 5Ks, nothing big, and I can't do that anymore. So that's discouraging. Because I don't have the lung capacity anymore. So I can walk though. So I have my legs, so I'm still happy for that. But I can't do. I have some friends of mine that are like super marathon people, and Janelle's one of them. I mean, she's incredible. And I have another one that like hikes mountains, and another one does marathons, 30-mile marathons. And I wish I could be like them, but I don't have that capacity anymore. So, but I do, I play my piano and I have other hobbies. So, that sort of overcomes that feeling of I can't do what they do, but I can do this.
Right. Yeah, I have some similar, like, physical, I guess you could call, restraints that right, like, I'll never be where I was. And sometimes it's not the best feeling to think about, but it is still, it's part of who you are, right? And again, the mindset of not giving up kind of can play a part in, like you said, finding new hobbies, new things to do that give you similar, how do you say, like, lively, like, passionate feelings, to feel good about how you're living your life and to be happy about the things you're doing on a daily basis.
Right.
So that's definitely tough. It's definitely tough. And my uncle or my coach that I live with currently, he said, like, you're going to have to accept that, like, you're never going to be the same, right? And that was kind of a hard pill to swallow, because so I had beaten cancer the first time and was able to get back to where I was physically before. And in my mind, I got cancer again. It was just going to be the same thing. I was just going to overcome everything I went through, and it's all going to be good. And it was a little bit more complicated. And, again, it's another challenge that we've been given that's somewhat out of our control that we have no choice but to overcome, and I think it is a big part in who we are today as the people before us now. And, I wouldn't want it any other way. I love who I am. Like you said, I'm super happy. I have the ability to do this podcast now, and it's awesome. I get to share people's stories like yourself, right? And it definitely is going to be bringing value to people in a way that I never thought I would be doing this, right? I never thought in a million years growing up that, I would get cancer and I'd have a podcast and I'd be inspiring the world through sharing other people's stories and giving them a platform to share their stories on how to overcome challenges, because everybody has challenges that they're going through, big, small, whether you're rich, whether you have all these advantages or disadvantages, wherever you are in life, we're all going through some kind of challenge.
Yes, and I think what you're doing here that is really awesome is that you're giving people a platform to share their experience, strength, and hope. And the biggest key here is hope. And you're selling that here, and that's what people need to hear, that it's okay and that people survive and you can beat this and don't quit. And that's what you're doing here with this podcast, which is just thank you for letting me share my, experience, hope, and all that. That's really great. I hope I can help somebody out there like you're helping.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the point here. Sometimes I say we're dealers of hope, and right. And it all comes back to your advice to not quit. Right. And you have to be able to have some type of light, some type of inspiration, some type of hope, some type of reason why to be able to outweigh all of the other reasons or excuses to quit. And some people, or sometimes it's hard to understand what that is for you. Or, right, it's hard to understand. Some people don't even think about it, right? And so it can be complicated at times, and it all comes down to really knowing who you are, right? And knowing yourself and being educated on the things you want in life, because we all live for different reasons. And, we all want different things, and it's on us to really make that decision as far as the things we want and why we do things and who we want to be, right? And so, yeah, that's exactly why we're doing this, right? Is to bring people hope. And I'm so happy to have had you on the podcast today. I really appreciate your time. What are some of the things you do to kind of like volunteer and like give back currently?
Well, in the past, I fed the homeless, which brings me a lot of joy. This week, I went over to a school and helped teach after-school kids the Bible, which was, from 2nd grade to 5th grade. That was quite interesting. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this sort of loud. So I'm sort of dabbling in that. And then there's another clinic that has the abortion clinic where you can talk and pray with other women that are, not that you're trying to talk them out of it, but you're just there to pray with them, or encourage them where they're at. And that brings a lot of joy too. And another thing that I do is I do Celebrate Recovery, and I work for the mental health. And that's my biggest passion is mental health and helping people with that, because the suicide rate is so huge, and trying to help remove that stigma. And that's something that I love and I'm very passionate about, is helping people with that area of their life.
Yeah. I love that. One of my favorite, I know I have a lot of quotes, but one of my favorite quotes is the most, well, I guess it's not a quote, but the way to be the most successful in life is to bring value and help the most people.
Yes.
And however you see fit and are able to do that, I love that you do it in the ways that you just shared with us, because that's ultimately, right, we are blessed to be able to give back in any capacity, right? To have resources to be able to donate to homeless people, right? Or to have the mental capacity to be able to, pray with people that may be in a tough place or may be confused or may just need somebody to talk to and pray with them, right? And they don't have that in their lives for whatever reason, and whatever that looks like, right? And you can be that person for them. So I love to hear that you're so passionate about giving back and helping people, like I'm doing, helping them overcome a challenge in their life and be able to be that light, that hope for them in their life right now. That's really amazing that you do that, Miss Brigid. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope is everything. Like you said, hope. What is that called? The hope dealer, or
the dealers of hope.
Dealers of hope.
Right?
Yeah. That's a great expression. I love it.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's all we have today on this episode of Beast vs. Zombie. Make sure to check us out, Beast vs. Zombie, at all social media platforms, Find us on Spotify and YouTube. You'll be able to see full videos like Miss Brigid and I did today. Go ahead, check out the website, BeastvsZombie.com. You can find shirts, all type of merchandise. 10% of everything goes to cancer research and cancer awareness. So be sure to go ahead and check that out. There's going to be some good Black Friday things coming up here shortly. Thank you again, Miss Brigid, so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate your time today. Everybody had a good rest of your day and be a beast.
Thank you.